if you live within a 15-minute walk of trees, like a radius of just a tree or a green space or anything like that, the research shows at Harvard and at in Canada, national and international studies, you just live 12% longer.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview thoughtful, inspiring, and creative guests who are changing the way we think about what is possible in our lives. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager, and I love to hear from my listeners. My new website, zestfulaging.com, is up and running, and it makes it easy for you to leave comments or suggestions. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker from her CD Buffalo Hotel, and it will be available in January of 2020. Judy Banker is also a guest, so you can hear my interview with her on the podcast. Well, I've got my Jack Russell Sparky right by my side, so let's begin. Today we're speaking with Verla Fortier, and she is the former director of surgery in Toronto, Canada. But at age 63, she was diagnosed with lupus. After 40 years in traditional healthcare, Verla became fascinated by the research showing the benefits of being outside and especially near trees. And she's developed a system that incorporates going outside to increase health, prevent dementia, and manage her own chronic illnesses. Welcome to the show, Verla.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
Can you tell us the story about how you came to be the founder of Tremendous and all about trees and outdoors when you were initially, this huge professional director of surgery in Toronto? What's the story behind this?
Oh, well, I had retired. I was a professor of nursing at that time at McMaster University in Ontario, and I was really looking forward to retiring to my little hometown of Pine Falls in Manitoba. When the rug was pulled right out from under me, I was diagnosed, as you say, with systemic lupus. And as a nurse, I knew what that could mean because I'd taken care of patients who died of lupus, many of them. So I was pretty petrified. So at the time, I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, I've been a nurse for 40 years. I should know how to be a perfect patient. So I just did what I was told. I was told to avoid the sun in case it damaged my DNA. I took my medications. I went to more and more specialist appointments and got more and more diagnoses added to my systemic lupus. And then I was just getting so sick and sicker with pain and profound fatigue, and all those symptoms just kept growing and growing. So that about a year after that, I was just lying in bed in my little prison. It felt like my home and my cell. And I was by this time I was totally isolated. I wasn't really, I was just kind of hiding away. I had moved back to my hometown, and I was just trying to stay inside and get better and get a grip on this. And I joined all the lupus support groups in the whole world. So I spent most of my time just scrolling through the comments and not participating because I was used to running, support groups, not being in one. So but then I came upon this one healthy-looking woman that said, about going outside. I just put on my hat and sunscreen and off I go. And I thought, what am I doing? I didn't care anymore. So I just did the same. I slapped on my hat and sunscreen and I walked outside. And a few minutes after being outside, I just felt totally different. Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only way I can...
Can you describe the difference? Yeah.
Well, I just felt lighter, calmer, and then when I told the kids, I said it's kind of like that Pac-Man when you lose a life and you get a new one. I was just powered up. I just had a brand new life, and I was out there, and I felt like somebody was pouring blood right into my body and cells and bones, and I just didn't know what was happening, except for I was just loving it. And I stayed out there for a long time and incorporated that into my life after that. And that's when I started.
So then you started researching.
I did, and that's when I started I thought, I've got to get this word out. So I started my little website called treesmendus.com, and I started to dig around in the research and share little things that I found. And then I thought, there's some really compelling stuff here. So I was writing down all the, the study designs. I went right to the peer-reviewed research because after I was outside, I realized, hey, I've got all these research skills. Why don't I look into trees and what's going on there? And I didn't want to just look at all the stuff that was floating around on the internet. I wanted to go right to the original research, which is what I did do. And then I found the most fascinating stuff that addressed my fears of what might happen to me that I wasn't talking to anybody about.
Mm-hmm. You must have been so surprised to see the science behind what you had discovered anecdotally.
Well, yes, I was. And like the first piece of research I went to really did change my life totally. It was done in 2015 by Gregory Bratman at Stanford University. And I was divorced in 2013. My ex-husband walked out of our perfect little family, left me and the two little kids, and I wanted to keep them in our home and in our community. So I picked up another job. That was so I was a senior manager in the hospital and a full-time nursing professor. Anyway, I just shoved everything underneath the carpet of my emotions and feelings and looked after the kids and after everybody in my jobs. But I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware of any mindset or, what I was doing. It worked perfectly well, until I got this disease. And then I looked at this Stanford stuff, and they said that first of all, they were describing their terms of what they were going to research, and they had, you probably know all about this, but they categorized this thinking as negative rumination. And I didn't know it was a thing. And it's that kind of thinking, I call it broken record thinking, that's, what if only I didn't get divorced, if only I didn't get this disease, why is my body breaking down, why I'm too old for this, why can't I get going? That these are all thoughts that totally swum around in my mind all the time. And I didn't know that there was a name for this or that it was a thing, and it wasn't me. So that was fun to find out. And then what they did was they were looking at what happens to your thinking when you go outside. And they were comparing these two groups, one that went out to the cement and the sidewalks and the other group that went to grass, trees, and shrubs. And how they tracked this, which was really appealing to me as a nurse, is that they looked at the blood flow to this part of the brain that I think of as the Heartbreak Hotel, where it just goes in there. They tracked the blood flow, and they found that the broken record thinking, when you're outside close to grass, trees, and shrubs, it doesn't go to that Heartbreak Hotel, it doesn't go anywhere. There's no activity. But if you go outside and look at cement buildings, then that broken record thinking goes to that, subgenual prefrontal cortex or Heartbreak Hotel part of your brain, and the music just gets louder and louder.
So that's fascinating. So what you're saying is the negative thinking is intensified when you're out in cement and concrete?
Yes. Well, it doesn't. Say you have that propensity for broken record thinking, which I did do, then it would just always be going to that Heartbreak Hotel part of your brain, and it would just be there. But say you wanted to get relief from that, it would just automatically happen even if they were in San Francisco Bay Area, like just out in urban areas around grass, trees, and shrubs, then there was just no broken record thinking. Just took it away. The negative rumination.
That's fascinating. Could you talk a little bit about trees and some of the basic chemistry around why being near trees is helpful?
Well, the way I first got started in this was I was reading Diana Beresford Kroger, and she's a chemist and a researcher and kind of an advocate for trees. And she's done medical research, and she says that there's these invisible aerosols that trees emit to protect themselves because they can't run away, and they're antibiotic, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and antiseptic. And so they give those off to protect themselves. So if we just go close to them and breathe, we're getting that benefit.
Mm-hmm. And they've certainly seen that in places like Korea and other places in Asia where they've done research, I understand, and I'm sure you know more about the details than I do, but the immune system is also strengthened.
Yes. In this, I started to look at all of that, and I really ended up thinking there's just so much here that I'm just going to focus on mindset, because the next piece of the brain part that is that I found that not only did it stop this broken record thinking, but these same researchers and others at University of Chicago, Mark Berman, who's an engineer and a psychologist, and his team, and also this earlier guy, Mark Bratman, who was in interdisciplinary studies, they looked at what happened they said, okay, if it takes away that kind of thinking in your brain, what else does it do? And then they found that just by being outside, it increases your short and long-term memory, your ability to problem solve, pay attention, learn new things. So it was, it's just huge. And then when I dug in further, it showed that if you have this broken record thinking, then it leads to cognitive decline, which is the exact opposite of what green space does. So that's why I'm saying that it can, so much of it is mindset, and that's why I called my book Take Back Your Outside Mindset, because probably the next book would probably be about immunity and heart disease and all these other things that...
I see. You want to start with the emotional part and then further on down the line talk about more of the physiology?
Well, I think there's just, the research is in so many disciplines that's what I find so interesting. Like but the immune system, yes, that was done by Dr. Lai, the sort of king of forest bathing, and he found some very interesting things about NK cells and how just being outside increased that for 2 weeks, and very interesting.
So can you give me an example of, your average maybe suburban dweller, city dweller, which you no longer are, I understand. You are with your beautiful tree friends, but people who live in areas were there's trees, but there's not enormous maybe patches of wilderness. What would it look like? Tell me, give me the prescription of what would be health promoting.
Well, if you live within a 15-minute walk of trees, like a radius of just a tree or a green space or anything like that, the research shows at Harvard and at in Canada, national and international studies, you just live 12% longer. So all you have to do is find a 15-minute walk from your place and just know that, just by being there, being in that air, you're going to live 12% longer, period. So that's one thing. And, of course, a lot of this stuff, they don't know exactly why. But the research goes on in universities, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. They follow people for a very long time where they live by postal code and use NASA satellite technology to figure out how long people live, and can be very definite about the outcomes, not so much the why. But I don't know if I've answered your question.
So you're saying find a patch and be with trees. And so what would it look like for the average, person, let's say, who's maybe not quite retired, but in that, let's say over 45, kids are launched, doing sort of the typical errands, some work, maybe some housework, maybe, going to the gym, maybe going to the bookstore, your average kind of life. What are the specifics about how long you're recommending people be near trees? Is it 10 minutes, a half an hour? Do they touch the trees? That kind of thing.
Right. So 5 hours a month is the minimum that the Finnish research shows to spend outside. That comes out to about 10 minutes a day. And what you could do is just start by walking under trees, sitting under trees. Take your biggest breath of the day outside there. Take a big deep breath. There's things that you can say to yourself when you're out there to tell your brain how you're feeling. Like, I'm feeling good out here right now at this moment. And there's also research that I became really fascinated with. Ellen Langer, a social psychologist at Harvard, and she doesn't equate it exactly with outside, but she has all these noticing studies, and she says that just by noticing something, puts you immediately into the present. So if you add that into your going outside practice, she said, notice something new in something old. Just stop, notice, and that is so good for you. So she picked this up when she started a whole bunch of really neat noticing studies when she was. She's also an artist, and she was noticing all the green in the trees. And she said it did something to her, and then she started these noticing studies. And, one of them is really, and now she's in her 70s now, so she's so interesting. So she's now looking at people with chronic disease and the medical care system and how fixed it is in terms of, mindset, and how it doesn't really offer that much possibility. If we're just taking a few words that, like I did, I got lupus and off I go. I just thought I was going to die. But noticing is a short cut for sure. It would really help the average person.
It reminds me of the book The Nature Fix with Florence Williams, who I interviewed last year, and talking about exactly these kinds of things.
Yes, I have a chapter on the book on Florence, the work that she did. And she's where, as I've heard one of your podcasts talking about fractals, and that's where I first learned about fractals as well, and then did a deeper dive into that as well. He's a pretty interesting guy, that Taylor, who continues to do that research.
Hey, Zestful Agers! Last year, I attended the International Federation on Aging's Global Conference in Toronto, and they've announced the 15th Global Conference on Aging for Niagara Falls, Ontario, from November 1st through 3rd, 2020. Zestful Aging Podcast is a proud partner for this conference, and I encourage you to all consider attending. The conference features prominent experts presenting and discussing critical issues within the field of aging. So head on over to ifa2020.org to learn more, and I hope to see you in Niagara Falls in November. Can you talk a little bit about fractals? Not everybody in our audience may know what they're about.
Sure. Taylor, who's a physicist and he was an artist and is really, that's where, and in psychology as well, so all kinds of different disciplines. He's really the guru on this, but he calls fractals nature's trademark. And so they're naturally occurring patterns in nature. So if you think about a pebble or the tree branches, they completely reflect what our lungs and heart and blood vessels look like, and we're all kind of branching off in these different kinds of patterns. Once you start looking for these, they're everywhere. They're just naturally occurring patterns in the soil and the clouds, in pebbles, in feathers, and in us. In us, and so
and in wrinkles. I did you wrote about wrinkles as well. Uh-huh.
And so he says, and he uses MRIs and computer systems, and he says that we don't even have to look directly at them. Say we're just walking by a window, our eyes pick it up, and it reduces our stress up to 60%.
Mm-hmm. So give me a day in the life of Verla Fortier. What does it look like these days?
Well, I organize everything about going outside. So I'm writing now. So I write when it's dark, and so I get up early, and then once I found out I would live longer once I went outside, I thought I better get fit for this. So I started to go back to my fitness classes, and that got me going. So I go to my fitness classes, and then after that, I go outside and have my tea, walk around my yard, look around, play around outside. Then I come in and do a bit of inside work, and then I go out again. Often I'll just text a friend and say, I'm going out now. What do you think? And I almost always now my friends say, yep, because they've read my book and they know.
They're converts.
Yeah. So then we just go out and meander around, and we find that we're just singing and joking, and if you sort of, that's what that Dr. Lai did. He used a mood scale before you go outside and after you go outside. Check your thoughts and emotions, and it's so different when you're outside.
You can really tell the difference.
Yes, yeah, I know you are. I see your work, and I already know that you actually do recording from out there, and
I do.
We're Forest Sisters. I know that.
I love that. Yeah, I find that it's almost mandatory because I do so much head work during the day as a psychotherapist, and I think about what guests I want to bring on the podcast, and I write, and so much brain work. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if I don't balance that out with just some walking, breathing, dog fun, knitting, baking, tennis playing, I'm just not very fun to be with. It's off balance somehow. So I live in upstate New York where the weather is famously pretty yucky. So I have to, when the sun's out, you just grab, and I know you're a Nordic pole user, I just grab my poles and I am off because the sun may be out now, but it's going to sleet in about 45 minutes. That's usually the way it goes. So it's very much like if the weather is, hospitable, it's time to go. And I'm fortunate, even though I live on the outskirts of a medium-sized city, there's a lot of green space. And I feel as though it's almost, to me, I crave it when I haven't been outside for maybe a couple days. If the weather's really horrendous or dangerous, it feels like it's almost like, I don't know, maybe this is too dramatic, but it feels like, wow, I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty for that. I need the experience of just being in an open space. And I remember when I talked, when I was interviewing Florence Williams, the idea of your brain, it's enough patterning, but it doesn't cause your brain sort of an energy drain to figure it out. It's like the fractals are enough stimulation to be interesting and helpful, but not too much to wear us out. Is that also your understanding?
I think so. I think the almost the more interesting research is that stuff on restoration, attention restoration. There's a name for it in science, and it just lets our brains rest. And so we pay attention differently out there. There's thing like top down and bottom up attention. So all those things that that we do, writing, thinking is top down, they call it, and then bottom up is when you go outside and your focus automatically goes to this bottom up kind of attention where you're just kind of looking around, right? And that's when your brain just rests, and that's that Berman work, that attention restoration theory. And, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. So
I'm sure, you could articulate it better than I could, but I mean, it feels very different in my body and my brain after I've taken. It doesn't have to be, a hardcore hike where you're sweating and your heart rate's up. I call them more like aesthetic walks. I look for hawks. My dog's chasing the squirrels. Right now, it's autumn. The leaves are gorgeous. It's hard to maybe even put into words, but I can feel the healing as it's happening.
I know. Same with me. I'm almost, and they say that once you start going out, you do crave it. Your brain wants it, yearns for it, and I have the very, very same feelings about it. If I don't go out, in fact, I'm training myself now because the weather is often horrible here. I read stuff that says, okay, like go out in any kind of weather, practice walking in the rain and get a good raincoat, and I have a little Facebook group so we get each other doing that, so we even go out in the bad weather. And then once you're out there, it's pretty good still.
It's pretty good. And what I love is not a lot of people are out because it's sleeting. And, I always joke I have like 20 different jackets depending on every 5-degree increment and moisture and,
that's so
but
good.
Talk for a minute. I saw that you're also a fan of Nordic poles, and I know they have European origin. They're not as common here as maybe they are in Canada, but could you talk a little bit about why you use them and why other people might want to try them?
Yes. When I started to feel so good outside, that's when I had real rheumatoid arthritis and still do. So, just joint pain that travels around, and I didn't feel that steady on my feet either. Like I had a little balance issues. So I went right to looking at the best poles, and I was looking for ones that were developed by occupational therapists or physiotherapists or physicians. And I found this particular kind of pole called urban poling. But I got those, and they're Nordic walking poles. You can get different, but any poles will do. And you can get the really fancy ones or any kind. And Nordic walking is just amazing because you just walk naturally. You're swinging your arms back and forth, but you have that extra security, and
it's like 4-wheel drive.
it's awesome. And you really get going almost too fast without any effort, but you're using up twice the amount of calories and energy. So you almost have to be careful because you just zip along. You use them, eh, Nicole?
Yes.
I
I love them because sometimes I walk in this local historical cemetery. It's got a lot of up and down rolling hills, stones, and back to the bad weather. I've wiped out a few times in the ice, so
Yeah.
I use them kind of as a 4-wheel drive method, and that's what I understand as well, is that you're burning more energy, but it also feels easier. It just feels easier to have that kind of support.
It really, really does. And at first I used them I thought, oh, well, if I run into a pack of wild dogs, I'll have a stick.
Yes. Your weapons.
or if I, want to prod the ground ahead of me, is there water there? But there's so many uses for them. I just love them. Yeah, and they're fantastic for getting outside.
I like use high quality ones, but when I travel, I found these Nordic poles that collapse, and so I bring them in my suitcase. So that when I was recently out in Albuquerque for the senior games and we were doing a lot of hiking, I had my poles with me, and they just put them right into the suitcase.
Well, I started to do that too. I went to Portugal, and I walked right up to security with them because I was using them, but I needed them really. And they let me through. But I would get the collapsible ones and travel. I wouldn't travel without them now, I don't think, because they help you get outside.
Right, and that's the mission here. So, Verla, how can people find out more about your work? And you've done so much research, you've had so much personal experience being using the outdoors, being in the outdoors for psychological and physical benefit. And I know people kind of know this in the back of their mind, but I think seeing your work will really help them. Where's the best place to find out about you and your new book?
Okay, well, treesmendus.com is my website. That's Trees Mend Us, all one word. And my book is on Amazon, and it's called Take Back Your Outside Mindset, Live Longer, Prevent Dementia, and Control Your Chronic Illness. And there's three, if you spend 3 minutes outside, this recent research just shows that your mood elevates immediately, and so does your self-esteem. So particularly if you've got a chronic illness, this really, self-esteem is really connected to your symptoms, and there's so much there in terms of, for all of us, in terms of being in the driver's seats of our thoughts and emotions when we go outside. So take those 3 minutes every day outside is what I would say. Yeah.
It's so helpful, I think, for people to hear, some details about, like, it's not just, go outside, it's nice, but like it really makes a difference on these scientific scores of wellness, that people actually do feel more generous, they feel more just flexible thinking whenever I'm kind of having a hard day. It just sort of helps you clarify things and get perspective.
Yes, and this shouldn't be our secret. I mean, I think we're both total converts to this, but not
Yeah, that's right, preaching to the choir.
Not everybody is. I mean, and it's a free resource that we can tap into at any time. And we can, build our resilience. We can, for the tough times that come ahead. And, there's so much that we can do, especially,
The ultimate self-care.
Yes, exactly, and it costs nothing. Yeah. And it's exhilarating.
That's wonderful. Just some good, it's exhilarating. Oh, amen to that. Verla, thank you so much for talking to us about being outside, forest bathing, all of this stuff. It's so important these days for people to take back their health because, as you've said, Western medicine offers us some things, but there's a lot more to be known and to be had, and I really appreciate your contribution.
Oh, thank you, and I'm so glad that we both are doing this and spreading the word together because, as it shouldn't be our secret.
And good luck on the book. I'll put that all in the program notes, and I'm sure our audience will be curious to learn more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. In this phase of our lives, we're more aware that our time is precious, and we certainly don't want to waste it taking care of stuff that we no longer need, left over from a life that we are no longer living. We know we would feel better with less clutter and more open space, but we don't know how to get there. If this sounds familiar, I'd love you to check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. This course is different than others you may have tried because we give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and tools to help you face the overwhelm and feelings that come up when you're going through your clutter. It's practical and realistic, and the lessons are short and punchy and very manageable, but it has the power to change your life. We all deserve to live in a peaceful home without the chaos of too much stuff. Find out more at NicoleChristina.com. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.